So today's tomato review is going to be on the Dead Sunset. This is a gorgeous tomato. It reminds me a lot of the Kellogg's breakfast tomato, except it's more of a slicer tomato rather than a beefsteak tomato. So I kind of like that a little better because I'm not always up for a beefsteak tomato, though I love beefsteak tomatoes. Sometimes I just want a sandwich slicer tomato, and this is just a tomato. So let me show you what it looks like after I sliced it. Hopefully the lighting's good. And you could see there's wilding in the rind. There's some wilding in the middle. It's kind of hard to notice it because this tomato is very light in color. But the seeds are attached to the rind, so that's a good sign. It's not a weak producing tomato. Some tomatoes, you'll notice that the seeds don't want to attach to the rind. And when you get that, you kind of get a sort of a awkward tasting tomato. So it's definitely got those attributes to it, and those are the first things I look for. And that's what it looks like that. Now this one was picked a little bit early. This one's been sitting on here actually a lot longer. So you can see this is a nice sized tomato right here. That costs you like $2 in the store. Probably about a pound maybe. But that's a gorgeous tomato. So I'm going to end up using this in my salsa later because I'm going to make salsa. And that's what's going in there. It's a beautiful tomato. Okay. I didn't get too many this year, like I've said in my other tomato review videos, because my tomatoes got hit with tomato wilt early this year and it kind of wiped everything out. So I got a couple on there, and this is one of them that gave me a few tomatoes. It still has some smaller tomatoes on it, but I chopped the plant down anyway. I picked the tomatoes and cut it down to close to the ground so it'll throw up new shoots, and hopefully maybe I'll get lucky and maybe get another small harvest out of it anyway. So yeah, I know people look at this and they freak out. They're like, you wrote on top of your tomato that ink is poisonous. I know that ink is poisonous. These tomatoes are sample tomatoes so I can do the reviews. There's too many tomatoes for me to review, hundreds of tomatoes, varieties, for me to review and keep track of every single tomato. You put them in bags, you write on the bag, you think you wrote it. Next thing you know, the smudge on the bag gets rubbed off. Now you don't even know what tomato it is. That happens all the time. So I write it directly on a tomato. All right? So don't freak out if you see some writing on a tomato. I do that for these reviews. I'm not going to eat it, don't worry. But yeah, that's the way it looks. You can see it has multiple chambers. It looks like it's got about 7 chambers there, but probably 6 on average. I should cut the other one open, but I want to save that one. And that's about it. I'll cut that right now, and we'll do a taste test on it. So that's what it looks like. It's a beautiful, like yellow, orange, light sunset orange. It's just a gorgeous tomato. I'll be honest with you. We're going to find out what it tastes like right now. Okay, so right out the gate, it's not very sweet. At least that one isn't. It's kind of tangy. I'd say 45–50% tangy. It's very tangy. I don't know if it's just that tomato or maybe the other one will be a little sweeter, but this had a lot of tang on it. Wow. Not very much sweetness. Nice tomato taste, but the tang really kind of throws you out a little bit. It's very possible I didn't put enough lime in the soil, so maybe that's why it's tangy. Usually I add a lot of lime to the soil, and that really sweetens the tomatoes up. If you don't add the lime to the soil, you don't put enough lime in the soil, you're going to get tomatoes that taste like this. All your tomatoes will start tasting like that. So it's very possible there's just simply not enough lime in the soil. But nevertheless, the first thing that came out of this particular tomato was that very striking, tarty, citrusy flavor came right out. And I mean, pretty strong, you know. So let me finish this. Because of that tangy offset and not enough sweetness, I'm not going to rate this particular tomato very high this year. I was expecting it to be a little bit sweeter, and that tanginess threw me off a little bit. What I can say is it has a nice tomatoey flavor. It's very moist, and it's not really chalky. It feels a little chalky. I may have left it on the vine a little too long, both of these tomatoes, but I like my tomatoes very ripe. And I like them to vine ripen. The taste of it isn't bad. It's a little bit chalky, it was a little bit chalky, and the tang is kind of almost overwhelming. That first bite almost made me cough because it was just, I didn't expect it to be that tangy. So I don't know, that kind of, and it's the fact that it's not very sweet. It's kind of neutral flavor and tang. It's all, like almost all tang. It's like the first thing you get when you ate it was tang. So, I mean, I don't mind the tang. It's just, I'm looking for a perfect tomato. And to me, a perfect tomato has a good blend of sweetness and tang. It's right in the middle. And it also has a nice tomato flavor that is in between the sweet and the tangy. That's what I look for a perfect tomato. The Boxcar Willie is a good example of that. That's a very well-balanced tomato. But this one's not doing that. It's giving me almost all tang. It's very little sweetness, maybe 10-15% on the sweetness. It's a little watery. There's not much of a tomato flavor. There is, but not that much. It's kind of chalky almost a little. So let me finish this. And I'm hoping because maybe my palate wasn't adjusted, maybe the flavor will develop as I eat these. But it's kind of the same thing. It's not as overwhelming as it was at first, but even with the palate adjustment, it's still a little bit, it's got some tang on it. Hope maybe next year I'll grow these again. I'll use a better soil. I'll add a lot of lime to the soil. We'll sweeten it up. It's going to be all new soil. Hopefully that fixes the problem, but as of right now, this review on this, it's not getting too high of an approval right now. It's a delicious tomato. It looks great. It formed great. It's got a nice size to it, nice color. It's everything you want in a tomato, except that tang flavor is just overwhelming. It's a lot. And believe me, I like a tangy tomato, but this is like, there's no sweetness to offset it. It's just tangy. So, but I mean, if you add that to a salad or you add it to your cooking and stuff, it's not going to be like that. So it's not going to exactly taste like that. But I'm a raw tomato person. I like to eat my tomatoes raw. I put salt on them. I cut them up into wedges like that, and I eat them raw. And that's the way I like to eat my tomatoes. So if it doesn't meet that raw satisfaction, then I'm not interested in the cooking part of it. Though you can make the sauce and everything out of it. It's just, for me, I want to eat them raw. So I don't know. I'm going to rate this one, from a 1 being the highest, I'm going to rate this probably a 4. Not a 4. I'm going to rate this probably a 6. So it's a little below the center mark on that. So it's not getting a very high approval this year. Maybe that other tomato will taste better. I'll cut it. Let's see. That's the inside of that one. Okay. Let's see if this one developed a better flavor. You can see it's much richer and brighter orange and looks like it developed maybe a little better. Let's give this one a go. How's that? This one's definitely not as tangy. It's more watery. It's definitely not sweeter. The sweetness is very low on this tomato. It's a lot less tangy. I'm going to say the tangy probably dropped 30-40%, but there's still some tang in there, but it's not overwhelming. It's a lot less. That other tomato is really tangy. It's still tangy, but much, much, much lower. Probably 50% lower than that one. Something like that, give you an idea. It's much more watery. It's more neutral in flavor, so it doesn't have a stronger tomatoey flavor. It's just kind of blandish and watery a little bit at first, and then the tang comes in from the seeds, and it kind of washes back. It hits that region of your tongue, and that's basically it. But it's definitely not sweeter. The sweetness did not come through on this. The tangy part dropped back a little, like I said, because maybe that tomato's a little more ripe or something. But outside of that, it's pretty much the same. Let me finish these two, and surprisingly, I'm probably going to bring this up to a 5 because of the overall look and shape and color of this tomato is just absolutely gorgeous orange. And the formation of the tomato is very unique. It's very, not unique, it's very uniform, and it's very pleasant slicing tomato. The only reason why I can't come up any higher is the sweetness was very low on it. It's tangy, but it's not as tangy as the other tomato, so I brought it up another notch. I'm going to say it's a 5 on my overall rating this year, my HR rating, if you want to call it that. I brought it up a notch. I'll say a 5, but I really can't go any higher. That's almost pushing it for me. When I get tomatoes that are off like that, I tend to gravitate to other tomatoes. Because I grow so many tomatoes, I'm going to reach for the tomato that I'm going to like the most. Like the Kellogg's tomatoes, the Rutger tomatoes, the Ponderosa tomatoes. Those are absolutely gorgeous red tomatoes. Flavors are very uniform on them. So when I hit a tomato like this, if it does it like 1 year, 2 years, 3 years in a row, and I'm changing the soil, I'm adding lime, if it keeps doing that, I'm not going to keep growing it, because I'm not going to eat it unless I'm selling tomatoes that year. I'll grow them to sell, but I don't know. Again, it's only going to get a 5 for me this year on this, so kind of disappointed. I was expecting this to be a mouth-watering experience, and it was a mouth-watering experience, but not a savory type, should I say. So, I don't know. I'm a little disappointed. So, giving that one a 5 for 2017 for the Dad Sunset Tomato. Anyway, if you liked this video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Take care, guys.